Well, welcome everyone who's ever tuning in. This is just conversations, right-minded conversations. So I have Patrick with me, and so beautiful how we just got brought together. We live in the same exact town, but we were brought together, I'm guessing, by the YouTube algorithm and your love for Jacob Collier and a video I made for him that came out of the love I have recently found for him. So I was like, hey, Patrick, would you like to have a conversation about you and how Jacob has impacted you? And you're really going to bring the musician's point of view, which I have no clue. Like in my video, I try to say some things that I don't even think were accurate in regards to music. So this is going to be exciting and fun. But why don't you first, Patrick, tell us a little bit about you? Like, how did you grow up in Florida? How did you end up here? What are you doing today? And yeah, whatever you feel called to share.
Yeah. Thanks, Ashley. Thanks for having me on Big Miracle Energy. So, my name is Patrick. I actually grew up in the Cincinnati area originally. I went to school in northeastern Ohio, about 4 hours from Cincinnati, at a small Catholic university called Franciscan University. And from there, I moved to South Jersey for a year for a front desk manager position. That was my first job I ever had in the hotel industry. Before that, I had worked in theme parks my entire life. I'm trying to keep my light from falling down over here. So we have good lighting the whole video. So yeah, I
No
started in
worries.
theme parks and then worked my way into hotels. And after a year in Jersey, I realized that wasn't for me. So then I decided to move to Tampa, which initially seemed like it was kind of something out of the blue to a lot of people. But I actually lived in Orlando for a little while when I was in college working for Disney. I did a Disney college program. So I'd already lived in Florida once before, about 4 years earlier. So I moved back to Florida again, but this time I moved to Tampa instead, just to be a little closer to the beaches. And then I started in the hotel industry here in Tampa. I worked in the hotel industry for about a year, and then COVID happened. I was furloughed from my front desk job at a Hilton nearby, and that's when I kind of transitioned into Target. I just got the first job I could find at Target, working in operations, anything from the guest service counter to pushing carts out in the parking lot. I did it all. So I did that for about 6 months or so, and then was able to work my way into human resources position that I did for about 6 or so months. I was with Target for just a little over a year. So I did human resources for about 6 months. Overall, I enjoyed the nature of human resources, but I just kind of realized doing it with Target wasn't the best fit for me. So I kind of went back to the drawing board and ultimately ended up getting into commercial real estate, property management. So I've been working at various properties around downtown, and I recently moved to a property out into the suburbs in the West Shore area. Since you're from the Tampa Bay region, I work in the West Shore area now, so about 15 minutes from downtown. And yeah, just managing various properties in the region, which has been really, really different from anything I've ever done. But at its core, it's always had a customer service kind of a customer service route to it all, regardless of whether it's customers at a theme park, or I should say guests at a theme park, or if it's our tenants in our corporate office buildings. It's always been customer service driven to some degree or another.
Oh, it just reminds me of what I went to your YouTube channel right after you commented, and we were kind of in this discussion, the zesty raisin, right? Do I have that right?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
zesty raisin. And you have some videos from the COVID era and about your kind of journey a little bit here. And that was one thing I loved about you, was you were just so a matter of fact. And it just is you had these things happen to you that most people would be like, oh my gosh, this means X, Y, or Z. Oh my gosh, I'm moving to Florida and I don't have any money. And how's this, all these different layers. And you're just like, yeah. And then this job came along and it was nothing like I had ever thought. And then this, and then you're still in this mode of whatever gets thrown at you, you're like, yeah. And that reminds me so much of Jacob and how he really operates with music and just open to whatever comes forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess to tie one similar between Jacob and myself, one thing that he has always had is the support of his mom. His mom has always been there. She's a professional violinist and has played in many symphonies and orchestras around the world, and is also a professor at a university in London as well. So Jacob has always had the support of his mom, and likewise, I've always had the support of both my parents. They've always supported me in every move I've ever made, from Cincinnati to Jersey to Tampa, and twice in Tampa because I moved from one part of town to another. So I've always had that support of my parents that have always made it possible.
That's awesome. Do you think having that support has really made you who you are today, and being able to make these courageous, some people would say courageous decisions in life, for people to move across the country, that's very hard and very scary. Do you think having them as a support and a guide that it sounds like shows up without judgment and is just like, okay, this is what you want to do, Patrick, we love you, we're here for you. Do you think that's helped you?
Definitely, yeah. And the support comes in a lot of different ways. It comes from my dad having a background in logistics. So he's a professional at packing that car real tight to move things across the country.
Nice.
And it comes with a financial support as well, because obviously you're not making a ton of hotel or a ton of money when you're working for a hotel. So it definitely comes with a financial component, having that support and just the overall positive attitude of we want whatever is best for you and will make you happy. And they understood I wasn't very happy in Jersey for very reasonable reasons. So
Mm.
they knew I'd be a good fit for Florida. And my dad had been to Tampa many times for business conventions and all that stuff. So he knows the area really well. And he definitely saw that it would be a good fit for me.
Cool. I love that. I love, love, love that. And I think, yeah, it's just such a testament to, having a supportive person. Like, you have both your parents. Jacob had his mom. Some people have a teacher. Some people have, a neighbor. But having that supportive adult can really, I think, shift a person's trajectory of making courageous decisions and feeling confident in themselves, and the support. So I love that. But I want to hear more about like your Jacob trip, because we kind of were emailing back and forth a little bit. You found him way before I did. So you were like one of the first people that really kind of has been on this journey with Jacob from the In the Room. Like, were you already watching him when he had the In the Room album come out?
Not quite that long, no. So I am a more recent fan compared to those people. I can't take that much credit.
Okay. But it's like 2018, isn't it?
I became a fan in, I believe it was 2020.
Oh,
So he did
2020.
yeah,
4 years.
yeah. So Jacob did an Instagram live stream with Charlie Puth. At the time, I was a huge fan of Charlie Puth. I still am a fan of Charlie
Oh,
Puth.
who's that?
He's a pop star. He's sung a lot of songs, and he's actually written songs for Justin Bieber, The Kid Leroy, and yeah, he's really big in pop music.
Okay.
Um, so anyway, I was a huge fan of Charlie Puth, and they did a live stream together, and I think it was December of 2020, and I'd heard a couple of Jacob Collier songs, but I wasn't very familiar with his work. None of his songs really wowed me that much. But it was during this live stream when they were just geeking out about music. They both have perfect pitch. So that's one quirky thing. They're both classically trained musicians. They both have a lot of background in jazz. So
Mm.
both of these artists share a lot of things in common. So I just like instantly connected with Jacob on a music background, just like based on his background in the genres he was interested and trained in. I was like, wow, this guy's really interesting. Just hearing his passion and insight for music and just being able to rock out with Charlie Puth for an entire hour and a half on an Instagram live stream that was completely unexpected, just
Mm.
out of the blue. It was so incredible. So right after that live stream, I did a deep dive on his YouTube channel, and that's when I like got into In My Room and Jesse Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3, because all of this I started getting hooked on him very shortly after Jesse Volume 3 came out. So
Mm.
like I said, it was
Okay.
kind of late in his career. Um, but yeah, it's just been a constant evolution ever since. And I guess Jesse Volume 4 was my first official album release with him.
Mm.
But it's been such a cool adventure the last like 2 3 years. Just seeing all the different things he's been teasing and some of the songs that made on the album, some of the songs that didn't make it on the album. And obviously it's kind of sad to see those songs that didn't make it on the album, but that just gives us so much more to look forward to in the future.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. So, like, are you a part of his Patreon group and stuff? I've heard that he has a Patreon and
More recently, I think I just joined maybe 3 4 months ago officially.
okay.
So I had seen a lot of the snippets from his Patreon because people like to upload things on YouTube sometimes. But
For free. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah. So I am officially a Patreon subscriber quite recently. But I've also done quite a bit of deep diving on there as well, going back quite a few, not quite years yet, but going back quite a few months and going into previous episodes, which has been really fun.
Oh, cool. Okay, so tell me more about like your music background and like what your music background looked like kind of pre-Jacob, and then how, well, let's just start there. What'd your music background look like?
So I guess I'll kind of start with present day. So I'm 29 years old now. My music background starts way back in like preschool. I remember being in my parents' basement and jamming out to musicals. I loved Annie, the musical. I
Mm,
loved Shrek, the movie, like the soundtrack to Shrek, even though none of the songs were original songs. And I just remember sitting at our massive box TV down in the basement and cranking up the volume. I'd have concerts whenever we had family over. I'd bang on like cookie pans for drums, and I was gifted a guitar as a kid. Never learned how to play guitar, but I would still play it anyway, even though I
yeah.
didn't know how to play a single thing. And um, my mom saw this as a trend, like, wow, he really likes music. So in kindergarten, she officially signed me up for piano lessons. I took piano from kindergarten all the way through most of high school.
Mm,
Never got anywhere near as good as I should have because I only practiced like 1 day a week. And if I were serious about the craft, then I would have practiced every day. But
hmm
um, regardless, I played piano for a while. Um, and then really involved in musical theater throughout high school and college. But I guess kind of throughout this whole progression of my music career, I never made money off of it, if you will. But I mean, I upload things on YouTube on and all that stuff. But during all that time, I guess my music genres kind of like transformed from musicals and country music. That's kind of what I started with primarily, and then it strayed away from country music and still stayed with musicals. Kind of went into pop, a little bit of rock. One Republic was my favorite band of all time for the longest time, and I would still say they're probably my favorite band, um, even to this day. But they're not my favorite act of all time anymore. I'd say
hmm
Jacob Collier officially has that title as my favorite act. Like if I would value any artist or group singularly the most, I'd say Jacob Collier is probably that person. And then if I had to choose a band, then One Republic would be that band. But
hmm
um, so yeah, since I started listening to Jacob Collier, he's really kind of broadened my horizons to a lot of artists of very different genres. I think one of the most unique, but still relatively well known, is Björk, spelled Bjork. Looks like
hmm
Bjork.
Yep.
She's an Icelandic performer, singer, songwriter, artist, really an artist to her core. Um, very experimental. For those of you who aren't familiar with Björk, very, very experimental. She's been making music, I think, since the early 90s. I think she started making music, releasing music just shortly before I was born in 95.
hmm
Um, and yeah, just truly, truly brilliant, kind of diving into her music. And one of my favorite covers that Jacob has ever performed was actually quite recently. He performed Björk's Hyper Ballad. Um, Truly incredible. If you look up his Hyper Ballad on, I think it was a Mahogany session, maybe like 4 or 5 months ago. It's a really, really good video. You should look up if you haven't already. Because yeah, just give it a look if you haven't. And then Kirk
Yeah.
Franklin, he's collaborated with Kirk Franklin quite a few times, so kind of diving into his kind of gospel choir things. And Willow Smith, kind of a unique one, but she actually does help him to open the album for Jesse Volume 4 because she's the one that does the screaming at the very end of 100,000 Voices.
Oh,
Um, yeah, yeah. So
interesting. I didn't know
if you
that.
listen, yeah, she's not credited on the song. Like she's not listed as a featured artist, but if you go on like Spotify or whatever and go like deep into the song credits, you will see her listed as a collaborator. So she's the one that does the screamo metalcore at the very end of the
Mm-hmm.
song.
Yeah.
But he had been teasing that collaboration for at least 2 years. Like he uploaded that video of Willow Smith doing screamo like 2 years ago, and he's been teasing it off and on. So like I knew it was coming, but never in a million years would I have guessed it would have been on a song called 100,000 Voices. But sure enough,
hmm
there's Willow Smith as one of the 100,000 voices.
I love that.
And then Jacob's really got me into jazz a lot. So like Samara Joy, they've never collaborated, but that's one of my favorite jazz artists. And Eric Whitacre, they've collaborated a couple times. So that's more like traditional church choir, and just gotten into a lot of classical music as well when I'm at work, and even when I'm driving in that crazy Tampa rush hour traffic.
Mm. If
It's
that's
nice
like
to
all
have,
day, every day, I'm like,
yeah. It's from like 7 a.m. till about 8 p.m. That's
right.
our rush hour.
I'm like, yeah, welcome. If you want to drive at any hours that anything is actually open in town, you will be driving in rush hour.
Yeah, yeah.
Side
And
note.
like I live downtown essentially, so I just drive from downtown to West Shore. It's only 6 miles approximately, but it usually takes me around 30 minutes just to go 6 miles. And it doesn't matter if I take the highway or the back roads, it's all the same traffic.
Yeah, yeah, we live downtown too, and just to like get to the grocery store that I think is like 2 or 3 miles away, it takes us 15 minutes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, I
that's how
get
it
it.
works. Yeah, and it's not a Tampa exclusive. It's a lot of major cities, but
Right. Yeah, exactly.
so
Sorry,
fun.
everyone. That was a side note. That's helpful information if you're coming to visit the Tampa St. Pete area anytime soon.
A beautiful region. I love living here, but the traffic is brutal.
And people don't know how to drive. But
Yes.
we should do like a whole episode on like the drivers of Florida because I know why my insurance is through the roof. Not because of me, but because it's just like what is around me when I take my car out of the car garage. Like,
Yeah.
whoa, what is
Yeah.
this?
Remind me,
Okay.
you're originally from here, right? From the Tampa Bay region, or did you
No,
move here? Okay.
Minnesota. No, no, no.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm originally from the Midwest, the nice land where everybody is nice to your face, but will stab you in the back. And then we're down here like in Tampa, where it's like what you see is what you get, which I love because that's who I really am, is like I don't pretend to be anything I'm not. Like what you see is what you get. So here, that's what I get. But at home, it was always like navigating, thinking when people are nice that they actually like me because I'm only going to be nice if I actually, care. And it just, yeah, not my land.
Yeah.
Down
Yeah.
here's where I belong better. Okay, so I love how your music genres have just like massively expanded because I would agree, like for me as well, um, it's not necessarily that like I'm seeking out new musicians, it's listening to his like his album, the volume 4 right now, and all of the just like randomness, but like calculatedness of the people that he brings in. And there's like old people, like I'm old, I'm 40. So it's like some of the people he brings on, I'm like, oh my gosh, I listened to them in like middle school and high school, and like they're still alive, they're still legit. And like he brings them on, and he's got like rappers and opera singers, like there's just like all these different sides, and he brings them together. So for me, that's been kind of the expansion for me. But yeah, it's so amazing. And not being on a music side, I feel like on the outside looking in, that can't be an easy feat to bring such different genres together to make something that's like not even a genre.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And I feel like that's become a much more common trend in the music industry actually the last couple of years. Even look at like the latest Beyonce album. Like at its core, it's a country music album, but it definitely still has a lot of her rap roots there as well, and it still features some pop and a very diverse out. Yeah, that's kind of the nature of the music industry now, is branching into diversity and very genre defying. But I really can't think of a single artist who has mastered that skill as brilliantly as Jacob Collier
Right.
has. To
Well,
do
and
all of those genres on one album, or even just one song. Like if you even look at
yes.
Box of Stars Part One, like as you mentioned, the rapping and the classical music and the big gospel choir, it's all in one song.
Yeah, it's just all there and it's so beautiful. And like even hearing you say that, I'm like, okay, maybe let's look at this differently. Cause now, like when you brought on Beyonce and you're like, all these artists are really just kind of breaking out of genres. I was like, you're right, they are. And then I was like, but Jacob is different. So it's almost like they're breaking out of genres. So they're just trying not to like be in anything, but he is like broken out and created new. So it's like, not only did he break out, he like what he creates is so sound, like it has a solid foundation. You know that statement of like building your foundation or on sand or rock, and that deciphers how long it lasts. I feel like he's truly building like some new genre of music that will sustain the test of time. I don't know,
Yeah,
what are your thoughts? Like I'm not a
I
musician, so
think
I'm just like making crap up.
I totally agree, and I think that the more you watch his live performances, at least from my perspective anyway, what I've realized is what really ties it all together, especially during his solo performances when he's just by himself, is classical music, which is
Oh.
interesting because he hasn't done a whole lot of like just solely instrumental things, but really what ties it together is jazz chords and
Hmm.
classical music. And you'll see that a lot in his Mahogany sessions. If you go to like the Mahogany YouTube channel and watch some of his performances there, you'll see it a lot in those videos. Those are very like classical music to their core, and he sings on them as well. Like there are vocals, but a lot of the time when he's singing, it's not about the words. It's not about, am I gonna hit this note? It's about just using his voice as an instrument and just
Mm,
forming these really, really chilling chords on the piano and on the guitar and through his voice. And um, it's not about the lyrics. The lyrics might be good sometimes, maybe they're not all the time, but it's
right.
not lyrics and being able to hear every single word. It's about moving people through melody and through these
Mm,
crazy chord progressions. And again, a lot of it is classical music and jazz to its core.
yes. Oh my gosh, yes. And when you just said like his solo performances, we were both at the St. Petersburg performance. Oh my gosh, Bridges Over Troubled Water.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I have been moved by music, and it's usually because I'm in a certain state, you know, like when you're sad or you went through something and then you listen to something that resonates. But like, I was not in any sort of state. He brought me to a state. And like, you said, like, this is when I fell in love with you on my YouTube, is when you said, nobody can both heal me and emotionally wreck me through sound frequencies quite like Jacob. And I was like, yes, that is exactly the case. I was like, yes, that's what I'm speaking of. What did you think? Like, I was just blown. I mean, I love it. It's Tori Kelly, right? That he does it with.
Yeah, so verse one is Yeba. She's not listed as a featured artist on the song per her own request because
Oh,
I'm gonna keep the story as short as possible.
you know all the
But
things.
so Yeba uploaded a recording of Bridge Over Troubled Water like maybe 5 or so years ago to her Instagram. Just an acapella cover. I think it was just like the first verse and that was it. That's all she left it at. Jacob Collier came across it and decided to harmonize to it. So it was Yeba doing the lead vocals and Jacob Collier doing the backup vocals. I don't know if he ever like officially got permission from her to do it or not. He just did it, whether he got permission or not. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he did it. He uploaded it to his Instagram, and then fast forward about 4 or 5 years. Suddenly we had this beautiful work of art where Yeba singing in the first verse, Tori Kelly in the second verse, or sorry, John Legend in the second verse, and then Tori Kelly in the third verse. Um, so Yeba decided she did not want to be credited, mostly because she didn't feel like she added anything original to the song, because she originally recorded this cover as like her own little fun thing on Instagram. She
Yeah.
didn't
Like at
she
home.
didn't record it. Yeah, she didn't record it to be serious. So the recording of Yeba that Jacob uses is that original recording she made on her cell phone. She didn't re-record anything.
Wow.
So that
And
that
I
is the
mean,
reason. Yeah, that is the reason she asked not to be credited because she didn't even re-record it. It's just the original one take on her cell phone. So,
wow. I mean, that's just a testament to like the quality of cell phone sound too. I mean,
yeah,
geez, wow.
yeah, yeah.
But
And this, like I said, this was 4 or 5 years ago. Like that was technology a little while ago
oh
compared to today.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's old. Well, I brought that up because I brought Tori Kelly up because I listened to it on Spotify and that's the only option. But it does, I mean, she's a beautiful artist. The song is beautiful, but the way it came out with his equalizer and all that stuff at St. Pete, I found at one point someone uploaded a copy of it on YouTube from St. Petersburg and it's I can't find it anymore and I'm like I want to hear it. So if you are watching this, whoever you are that took it off your YouTube, please bring it back because it like I found other ones from other places that he's been doing prior to our concert and people are hooting and hollering and cheering in the background. The one in St. Pete is like you could hear a pin drop.
we had a very quiet crowd. Yeah, for better or for worse. It's great for like if you're someone new to Jacob, I think it's great to have a quiet crowd. But if you're a very passionate fan like myself, it's always a little saddening when you have a quiet crowd because
Oh, okay. Interesting.
his fans are very respectful. Typically speaking, his fans are very very respectful, but they're
Yeah.
just very very passionate. And when he does a fun vocal riff or a weird chord, they're gonna cheer, they're gonna hoot, they're gonna
Yeah.
holler. And the St. Pete crowd was definitely a very tame crowd, which part of might just be the demographics as well. Not saying everyone was over the age of 70 by any means, but I mean,
But
there
that is
there was a there was a good number of people around the age of 70 or above towards the front where I was sitting and where you were sitting as well. I was just a few rows behind you.
Yeah,
So
there was quite a few older people. I was surprised. But there was
yeah,
like
so
this amazing group like of 5 people in the very front row, and they were just like going to town. Like it was so fun to watch them, and Jacob made contact with them a couple times. But oh man, okay. So it has impacted your genre you listen to, but what about like your own approach to your own music and just like in general, I guess, like how you
ooh,
show up?
that's rich. That's a rich question. So I this pains me to say this, but I haven't really gotten to the point where it's changed my personal recording of music yet. So what I did about a year and a half, 2 years ago, it was about 2 years ago, I started taking voice lessons for my first time ever. So like I had a musical theater background, but I never actually took singing lessons.
Right.
Oddly enough, it was all self-trained and like in various choirs. Um, so I finally took like one-on-one voice lessons online through takelessons.com. And so that was kind of like when I was really, really, really starting to fall in love with Jacob, but I didn't really let his music influence what I was doing a whole lot per se. So I took voice lessons for about a year and a half, and then I stopped to kind of pursue other things, and I'll probably go back to him eventually. But to be honest, I really haven't really touched his music a whole lot. I did a I attempted a cover of Make Me Cry, which is off of, I believe, In My Room. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure that's off of his original In My Room album. It's a really, really heart-wrenching song. If you
Mm,
want a song that makes you cry, listen to
well, it's called
Make Me
Make You
Cry.
Cry. Like I
Yeah,
feel like
yeah. And that's another song. I'm pretty sure he did a Mahogany session performance of that song as well. Definitely worth your time to look up. It's absolutely incredible. So
Oh,
I don't even think I uploaded that on my YouTube channel because it wasn't anywhere to the point that I wanted it to be to share it publicly.
okay.
Um, but when I finished up voice lessons about 6 months ago, some like a little goal I made for myself, kind of on my own solo time away from my instructor, was to kind of get back into voice layering, to do a lot more harmony, which is
Oh,
something that Jacob is huge on in general.
mhm.
But especially, I mean, that's how he first started. Like In My Room album was 100% by himself. Like he played every single instrument, he did every single voice track, he wrote every single song, primarily by himself in his mom's basement.
Right.
um, definitely a longer term goal down the road. Again, I haven't actually started doing it yet, but a longer term goal a little down the road, once to kind of get back into singing more. My goal is definitely to get more into vocal harmonizing and kind of focusing less on the big vocal ballads and the runs and the vibrato, and just focus more on the vocal layering and the sound production.
Wow. I mean, that sounds amazing. And even though you feel like it hasn't fully impacted you yet, I just feel like I don't know. I feel like I don't know how it can't, and maybe you just don't see the direct correlation. Um, but like just like the way like the vocal layering and things like that, do you think you would have like wanted to pursue that more if you didn't see how amazing it could be?
No, not a chance.
Right. See, so
Not
it's
a chance.
like this, and then so my other question, I know I'm just kind of like all over the place. I'm not really an interviewer. You've seen my videos. I just do
You're
videos.
doing
So
great. You're doing great.
oh good. So I just really like conversations. But okay, so I know it's hugely impacted you in music, and that's really where our conversation is. But when you think about it, like watching that video of you talking about like your transition to Florida and all these things that essentially if someone else looked at that was in a very negative place could have got held up, could have been like, oh, life sucks, it's the woe is me, or just life is hard, any of those things. So it's like you already had this beautiful expansive way of looking at the world. Would you say that prior to
Yeah,
ever
yeah,
interacting with Jacob?
yes, definitely.
Hmm. So, okay, so because I have a theory, and I talked about it in my video a little bit because, dang it, what was the woman's name that opened for him? I'm drawing a blank now.
Kimbra.
Kimbra. So remember Kimbra, she said when he asked her to come on tour, she was excited because she knew people that follow Jacob are either major musicians and appreciate the music or they're very deep thinkers. Like that's
Yeah,
literally what
yeah.
she said. So it's like he's attracting what he is. And I feel like you had both of it. And I feel like a lot of musicians have both of it to some extent because I feel like you have to kind of be a little open-minded to be a musician. It's a very artistic thing.
Mhm.
Um, but like you really brought both worlds.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
I mean,
I
that's what I
get.
felt when I watched your video. I was like, oh,
Thank you.
even though he just wants to talk about music, I feel like there's more here.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I definitely come from more of a musical background for sure. But I mean, like I did go to a Catholic university. I did grow up Christian, Catholic, and so there definitely is that side of my background as well. Like I definitely took a lot of philosophy classes, so it's not necessarily in my natural DNA to be a deep thinker, but
Hmm.
I've definitely done my fair share of pouring my heart out in my little journal, just writing away and
Yeah.
pouring out my guts. So there definitely is that side of me for sure. But I think that the music side of me is definitely more prevalent in my fascination and fanaticism for Jacob Collier.
Yeah. Oh, I just love that. And I love because you're what's your are you a millennial, like a young millennial?
I'm right on the border. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of debate whether the cutoff is 96, 94. I was born in 95. So I'm either a really, really young millennial or a really old Gen Z. And I think I'm the perfect hybrid of both.
Which is hilarious because I'm on the opposite spectrum because I'm 83 and they like fight over like are we a millennial or are we a was that Xer? Whatever comes before
Yeah,
it.
X. Mhm.
And then they made like a middle one which is like my generation where we like grew up without any electronics but we were young enough to still learn all the electronics when they came out, so like we're like a crossbreed. We can still remember what it's like to be to need to be home when the street lights go out and that you have to call your friend on a corded phone and your parents
Yeah,
listen
yeah.
in and three-way calling and all this junk. So I think that's kind of funny we're on
Three-way
both.
calling is wild.
Yeah, three-way calling. That was awful. People were pretty mean with three-way calling, to be honest with you. Like they call you up, ask you questions and someone else is peeping in the background. Oh my gosh, kids can be so mean.
I
So,
need to look
okay.
up a YouTube video on that.
Oh, yeah, cuz you have no clue what it is. What about a Discman? Do you know what a Discman is?
Explain it to me.
Oh my gosh. It's a mobile CD player.
Okay. I think I had the like just battery operated.
Yeah, and I put
Okay,
my
yeah,
CD in it.
and like plug in headphones or
Yeah, yeah, plug in headphones.
okay,
No
yeah, I guess
Bluetooth. No Bluetooth.
yeah, I guess I don't really recognize that term, but yes, I did have one of those growing up.
And then a Walkman was before that, which was a tape.
Yes, I had one of those as well.
But you
Mine,
must have
I
been
don't
like
know.
a miniature human
It
at that
was.
time.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You were.
I don't. Do most of them have microphones on them? Because mine had a microphone, so you could like record yourself onto the tape as well, so
No,
you could
that
listen to
was
tapes
that.
and record
No,
yourself.
you had a recorder is what you had, and it had the mini
Oh, okay,
tapes. Yeah.
okay.
So
I was
yours
just
was like
okay.
advanced
Slightly
already.
evolved. Slightly
Yeah,
evolved. Yeah.
you already were evolved for sure.
But
Okay,
oh
so
my
tell
gosh, I
me,
remember so many hours in my parents' basement now when I was a kid, recording those Shrek songs and recording those
uh,
Annie songs and
do you
me
have them
singing to
still?
them. No, no, those have been thrown away a long time ago in some landfill in
Oh,
Kentucky. But
that would have been so fun to like listen to them, to play them on here.
I'm sure they have cassette tapes though of me in like some fifth grade play or something. I'm
Yeah,
sure
for
there are tapes
sure.
somewhere. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so how many have you met Jacob in person?
No, not in person.
Okay, how many times have you seen him live?
Twice. I saw him in 2022 at Disney Springs. He played at the House of Blues or House of Blues at Disney Springs. That was really cool because it's such a small venue.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how
Um,
many people do you think?
there is less than 1,000. I don't
Okay,
remember exactly,
wow.
but yeah, less than 1,000. There's no seating, so it's standing room only,
There's a
which
lot of
means
those.
it is to your like advantage to get there as early as possible because it's just first come first serve basically for your standing room only seating, which we didn't realize. We got there not late, but We were not in the front, let's just say that. um, but yeah, that was a really cool experience. That was with a full band as well.
Mm.
And Alita Moses, who you saw, the African American lady with the big hair. I don't know if
Yeah,
you remember
she's
her, but
beautiful.
incredible voice. Yeah, she toured with him in 2022 as well. So she's been with him for about 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
I'm a huge fan of hers.
Is she like her
Um,
own artist on the side too?
she has a couple of original songs. I don't want to get hate for this, but I don't think she's a very big songwriter. I
Okay.
think she's just really passionate about singing, and that's how I am as well. I'm not a songwriter. I just love singing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, we can't all be
um,
songwriters.
exactly. But yeah, she does have some solo work out, but it's mostly performing with other artists as either a backup singer or maybe a lead vocalist for a band. But not a whole lot of original songs.
Okay. So when you saw him at the House of Blues, like what was that experience like? Was he was already doing the audience choir at that time?
He was, yeah. And actually, I guess the configuration of the show was a lot different. So when I saw him the first time in 2022, he integrated like the audience choir and a lot of that audience participation a lot more throughout the show.
Mhm.
And I went to actually both shows with my mom. I went to the one in Orlando with my mom, and I went to the one in St. Pete with my mom.
Okay.
Um, and she definitely enjoyed the St. Pete show a lot more because he kind of saved a lot of that audience participation, like the big audience choir, that really crazy rainforest nature sound effects if you stayed for
Yes.
the second encore, and the oohs and ahs and all
Oh
that
my
fun
gosh.
stuff. He mostly stayed for the encore, and my mom liked that a lot more because she's not a huge music fan, and she just found that stuff to be really cheesy and not her thing, and she doesn't enjoy singing, and she
Oh.
doesn't she doesn't enjoy having fun like that. So,
Oh. Well, at least
so
she appreciated some of it.
yeah. So she was very happy that he kind of saved a lot of that stuff for the encore. So you get like the meat and potatoes, the music during the actual concert, and the diehards who decide to stay afterwards. That's when you get all the like really fun, quirky Jacob Collier
Yeah.
stuff that's truly distinct to him.
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah,
Because like you
yeah,
could have a massive appreciation for his music, like your mom, in a very just like musical way, versus like the creativity, no rules, throw out the box that you get that we got in the encore and the second encore, which was truly just like we just threw out any rule there was and anything goes, is what it felt like to me.
yeah. And for those who aren't huge Jacob fans, just to kind of explain the premise of the audience choir really quickly. So it comes in different forms. So he does oohs and ahs sometimes. So he'll just go ooh, and you
Yeah.
repeat after him ooh, and then he'll do an ah, and you repeat and then he'll go ah. And so like the first third of the audience will repeat and they'll hold the and then the middle part will do just like a couple steps of that. So like and then the third section of the choir will go so you'll have like a three-part harmony going all at the same time, which is really
Mhm.
really cool. And then he'll start conducting the entire
I love
audience
that.
to go
That's a
up and down, and he'll make different hand gestures to like soften the notes, make the notes bigger and louder.
Mm.
And then there's like the perfect cutoff at the very end, so everyone knows exactly when to end because they'll do like a really big jump down,
Mhm.
so everyone knows to end. So it's all very uniform, and it's such a beautiful thing. And during the final
Mhm.
encore, again, he split up the audience into sections and had people create a bunch of nature sounds. So it was like
It
birds
was,
chirping
oh, it was
and
just
monkeys
whatever,
and
whatever,
giraffes and
whatever animal.
elephants and
Yeah. So the first time you ever experienced this audience choir, like I think that is really a philosophical experience, like an actual tangible experience of all the philosophy I've ever read. And you said, I bring it up because you said you've done your fair share of philosophy and journaling your heart and soul out, but really like the true oneness and like no judgment. Like everybody, I've been to concerts where people are singing along or whatever, and it's only the people that feel like confident or that are wasted, and then the other people are just keeping quiet. Really, at Jacob's concert, it didn't matter. Like my voice, I don't even think voice lessons could save my voice. And I was just like all in, like everybody was. I didn't see a single person with their mouth closed when we were in the second encore. And so it really felt like that full, like, we're just like one instrument and
Yeah,
there's like
yeah,
no judgment.
yeah, yeah. And there's not that fear of being flat, or you just he just pulls it out of people. Even if you're not a singer, he just pulls it right out of you. Yeah.
Yes.
And if that one person is flat, no one really notices anyway because everyone else is so loud and into it. Like
Right.
no pressure. It is a very judgment-free zone. No pressure at all.
And it sounds so pure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like just so like what did you experience not just like musically, but like did you have any sort of like emotional response or experience or feeling the first and the second time you were a part of the audience choir?
Definitely, definitely goosebumps.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely goosebumps. Um, Definitely some like shortness of breath, like literally taking my breath away very
Mhm.
briefly. I didn't pass out or anything, but definitely literal taking away of my breath. Also, not necessarily relevant to the live performances, but when I listen to Box of Stars on Jesse Volume 4, when I listen to Box of Stars Part 1 and Box of Stars Part 2, so that's the second and third last songs on the album, um, I I think I experienced every single emotion I could have possibly experienced between those two songs combined. So like Box of Stars Part 1 is just so high energy because you have your hip hop, your pop, your rap from I think 3 or 4 different languages that are being sung on Box of Stars Part 1, which is insane.
Mhm.
So you have like all this really, really high energy pop. And then towards the end of the song, you kind of transition. It just kind of becomes percussion as you're traveling through different like Latino regions or different Latino countries through percussive elements, which is really, really unique. And then you kind of start to transition into Box of Stars Part 2, and you have this just really epic choir and symphony that's actually conducted by Susie Collier, Jacob Collier's mom. She conducted
Mhm.
every orchestra on the album, which is really cool.
Mhm.
Um, and that's kind of when the goosebumps start to creep in. And by the end, I'm just an emotional mess. I was outside walking my dog as I was listening to Jesse Volume 4 for the first time, and when we came to the last 3 songs of the album, it was an emotional roller coaster.
You were wrecked.
Not even my dog going on a walk. She's kind of making noises right now, actually, but not even taking my dog on a walk could ruin that moment of the emotions that Jacob Collier just pours right out of me.
Wow. I mean, be like, have you ever known enough? Because you sound very much into music. Like, you know your people, you've listened to it, and maybe that's just because you're a musician or you just love music. I don't know. But have you ever experienced that with anyone else to that extreme? I mean, I know
No,
other songs probably have provoked emotion.
yeah, yeah. I can definitely think of solo artists whose voices move me.
Mhm.
Someone like Cynthia Erivo. That's a huge. She played Celie in The Color Purple on Broadway a few years ago, and she's actually playing Elphaba in the Wicked movie coming up, which is really exciting. She has an incredible voice, so like she has moved me to nearly tears many times just through her vocal proud, just so much strength. And Jennifer Hudson, a very similar artist, like her voice is just so strong and she's so good
Mhm.
at conveying emotion through her voice. But in the end, they're always doing it as solo artists. They're always doing it like through belting, and the way
Mhm.
Jacob does it is very different because he does it through an audience. He does it through how he plays piano. He does it through how he plays guitar, how he plays the harpeggi. Most people don't even know what a harpeggi is,
Is
but
that that weird little thing he has?
so it's he describes it as like a hybrid between a guitar and a piano. So you play it kind of like this, like you're typing on a keyboard almost.
Yeah.
Um, but it's like a wooden board and it has a bunch of strings that are vertical, and you just kind of
Yes.
yeah, like pluck your finger. I don't think he played it at all in
No,
St.
he
Pete,
didn't, but
but
it's in the BBC interview, I
yeah,
think, or one.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. That is so cool.
yeah, that's the harpeggi. So just yeah, his ability, just the amounts of instruments he plays and how incredible he is at so many of them. And again, just his ability to use his voice and an audience choir's voices as well, just to
Right.
really create these incredible chords that elicit so many emotions, from extreme highs to really sad, heart crushing lows. I've
Right.
never seen an artist do it like that.
Yeah. I mean, I have so many theories about Jacob that are much more philosophical and what he's here to, kind of open another box like Gandhi did and Mother Teresa and Jesus, these very big spirit, very big, like just truth and this just aura of no judgment. And I was listening to, so some guy, this PS, the video that you and I have connected on is just like bringing in the most amazing connections ever, like with you and some guy commented on there about an interview that Jacob did, and he said he tells about how he came up with the audience choir, which it's just kind of a small explanation. He was doing something somewhere and realized like I can do this and wow, and I can, orchestrate it. But he was sharing in there that he feels his like job or duty or purpose or whatever you want to label it is to help others brighten their spark or remember their spark. And he used the example of like his sister, when his sister like is going through something unfavorable and she's not feeling very happy, he's there to do something funny or whatever that reminds her of the spark she has within, because he can always see the spark in everyone. And to me, that is very, like spirit led, is very higher self led, or God or Buddha or whatever, just that very pure essence where we can see the beauty in everyone. And but the coolest thing is he's like this mirror. And I feel like that's what we get to experience when we're there, and why you feel so comfortable singing with all of these people. And for me, after I experienced it, um, I just walked and I just wanted to like hug everyone. I just felt like so happy and filled with so much love. Like I didn't know what to do with it. And I'm
Yeah,
a
yeah,
loving person. Like I can tap into love. And he brought me to like a whole new level.
yeah. One of my, I definitely experienced that feeling immensely when I saw him in at Disney Springs. I didn't feel it as much when I saw him in St. Pete. Maybe it's just because it was my second time seeing him, so it wasn't quite as magical as it was the first time. Maybe it's because it was a bigger venue. Maybe it's because I wasn't standing. I don't know.
Maybe.
But I definitely experienced that a lot when I saw him the first time at Disney Springs, and I really hope that the bigger he gets and the bigger the venues get, I hope people don't lose that feeling.
Yeah. And
Yeah, yeah.
he talked about that too, like the people that have been with him from the beginning, are like, hey Jacob, you're not the same as you were. And like everybody's always like, we want our favorite artists to literally create one album, it be the same album forever, and they never change. And I get that. Like I remember I listened to Taylor Swift when she was actually a country singer. Did I love her? No. But when she entered into this pop scene, I was like, who the heck is this girl? And now look at her, she's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
blown up the world. But that's what I love about him too, is like his focus is not reach. And he says that on the Colin and Samir. Oh, I think it's
Mhm.
Samir.
Yeah,
That interview that he does, that he's not attempting to reach masses, like Taylor Swift does. Taylor Swift reaches masses. He is really focused on movement of one person. And, you know, Taylor Swift got so big because she wanted to, I mean, she wanted to move people too. Like, I'm not discrediting her there. And she does move people, right? But the thing she did to make sure to reach more people was she listened to what they wanted. And it wasn't necessarily about the music, it was about the venues and this and that. And then she kept molding herself to fit what everybody wanted of her. And Jacob has made it very clear, like, that's not my plan. My plan
yeah,
is
yeah,
whatever comes out of me is what comes out of me. And I don't judge you. I mean, he doesn't say this, but you get a sense of like, I'm not judging you, so where is the room to judge? I'm just holding a beautiful space, and I would hope that this invitation allows you to come in. Um, so yeah, I feel like he'll just move us in new ways constantly, and I think it will have to do with where we're at. Like,
Mhm.
I went with two other people to the concert, and you went with your mom. I'm sure she had a way different experience than you did, right? Like,
She
if
did, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I
we
said,
brought her on.
she definitely enjoyed him. She definitely enjoyed him a lot more this time in St. Pete than she did in Disney Springs, just because, yeah, again, kind of saved a lot of that audience participation for later in the show. Which she was like, "Great, I didn't want to sing anyway." So,
Right, and you loved the flip side. You loved
yeah, yeah,
the House of Blues.
I loved it both ways. Yeah,
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 you loved it both ways, but if you could choose, you loved the more intimate setting with the, the House of Blues. Um, but that's the beauty of it. I went with my partner and I went with a friend, and we all took something so different from there, because it's like it's truly a space of perception, right? Like your perception is what's going to create your reality in a Jacob Collier concert.
yeah,
100%.
yeah. Another thing he's really big on, kind of going off of this, is get what he says is giving people permission. So like
Yes.
you don't need to be a great musician to go to a Jacob Collier concert, because like there's that intimidation, like, oh, this guy has perfect pitch and he's classically trained and he plays all these instruments. So like, and a lot of people think he's really judgmental and like snobby because he's British and he has that accent. And
Oh, okay.
a lot of people kind of have that impression of him, but
Yeah.
he's very big on just like giving permission. Again, you don't have to go in being really
Mm,
talented. It's just you need to have the right instructor there, either the right coach or the right teacher or the right inspiration there to give you the permission and the tools that you need to
yes.
create and live.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And another thing he says too that I think goes along those same kind of lines is that his only job is to get out of the way of what comes out of him, right? Like his only job is to and to me, I hear that's like him giving himself permission to just like show up fully as his, highest self.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I mean, I could talk about Jacob forever, and not, not just necessarily him as like Jacob, the personality, but like what he's bringing to the world, what he's bringing to music, to just being seen, people being seen. I think people are being seen that may have never been seen if Jacob wouldn't have come around, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Absolutely.
And it's just like this, wow, beauty, complete beauty. What other thoughts do you have about him?
Hmm. So, another way in which Jacob has inspired me, kind of as a person, not necessarily as a musician and lover of music, is how quirky he is. How
Mhm.
he'll show up to almost every show in pajamas and these
Yeah,
flowy pants and the funniest shirts and
no
vests
shoes.
and socks that never match and no shoes. And even that, like his signature shoes are Crocs. I was actually a little sad when I went to the concert in St. Pete. Hardly anyone was wearing his signature Crocs. Like he has his own custom
Oh,
Crocs. I was wearing mine, but I didn't see anybody else in there. So
I didn't know he did. Okay.
yeah, so they have bells on them. So like on the back, they jingle when you walk, which is really quirky. And they have wind chimes on them, but the wind chimes don't do anything. But they have wind
Yeah,
chimes. Like yeah, he has his own custom gibbets, and they're very colorful.
of
But
course.
and they're limited edition, so you can't buy them anymore. But they went on sale the same time the song "Well" came out. Well with four L's, which was like a year and a half or so ago. So once they sold out, they were gone. But so anyway, one of the ways in which he inspired me is just kind of taking myself a lot less seriously. I've never
Mm,
been like super harsh or critical of myself, but just seeing one of my biggest inspirations be able to just show up and be himself at these concert venues, and every
mm,
interview he goes to, he's just so authentically himself and
mm,
doesn't care about judgment or what people think of him. But he's not rude or aggressive about it, because that I
mm,
think that's very easy for a lot of Gen Z people in interviews. Like they come off as so confident in themselves. It's almost very edgy and kind of
yeah.
condescending. And I don't get that from him at all. So it's just like this humility and reverence, but all in just being himself and so confident in what he does, but still having the humility to always learn and being open to learn new things. I don't know if you saw, but I think when he was in San Francisco, either San Francisco or the show right before San Francisco, just like 2 weeks ago, one of his fans gifted him a 10-string guitar, which I don't know if he's ever played a 10-string before or not, but I know he's definitely never owned one before.
Wow.
So either that same show or the following show, I forget if it was the San Francisco show where it was the first time or if it was the show before, but he played, I think, 2 different songs on that 10-string guitar that a fan had literally just gifted him.
Wow.
And again, I'll keep this short as well, but a little quirk about Jacob Collier and his guitars. So most guitars are either 4 strings or 6 strings. Because humans have 5 fingers, Jacob finds it easiest to play a 5-string guitar. So all of his guitars are 5-string guitars, regardless of whether it's an acoustic guitar or an electric guitar, or a bass guitar. They're all 5-string guitars. And because of that, most of them are custom made because it's really hard to just go casually buy a 5-string guitar because it's not
Yeah.
really a thing. So most of them are all custom made by Taylor or some other music instrument creator. But yeah, someone gifted him a 10-string guitar, and sure enough, just a day or two later, he was playing it out at his concert, and it sounded like he's been playing it for years. So
Wow. 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 That's
it's
amazing.
that
And
it's that humility just to learn on the fly, and it's just incredible. Yeah.
yeah. Well, and I don't know if the kid ever sleeps because he's constantly in this state of just like spirit or what people would call flow state. And I feel like he just is constantly going. And when he puts his mind to something, it just happens. It just unfolds. I'm glad you brought that up because actually there's another gentleman that next week I'm having a conversation with. His name is Miko. He commented as well. And he just went to the show in San Francisco. So I'll have to ask
Ah,
him. Yeah, and you'll have to see that interview. So that's super exciting.
I'm looking
Well,
forward to that.
I had one question though that keeps coming up in my mind, and I've thought about just kind of unpacking it more on my channel. And maybe, you don't feel either way, but I agree. Jacob is so authentic and so respectful in all of his interviews. Even if he doesn't like fully align with what the interview is insinuating, he just like gracefully kind of redirects in a way, but not like a icky kind of way. But one question I noticed, well, it's not even a question people necessarily make, that it's a statement to him, an assumption. And I don't think it fully resonates with him. And I bring it up to you because at the beginning, you talked about his mom supporting him and your parents supporting him. And you never once used it as a negative for Jacob that he only had one and you had two, or, or either, right? Like it was never, it just was. You saw that his mom was this amazing support, and that's how he got where he is today. And you had your mom and dad. It just was. But literally, Patrick, every interview I've been listening to, people want to correlate his success because I think we've been taught that you have to like go through hard times in order to be successful. That's your driving force. But like every interview is like, oh, your dad left when you were a kid. That had to have been awful. That must be your driving force as to why you do what you do today. And
But he never talks about it.
no, but like the most recent interview I listened to that the guy mentioned on my YouTube channel, crap, it was some like music guy. It's his podcast, but he literally outright said, you must have had a really hard childhood and this is your driving force. And Jacob, I have never heard it take him so long to answer a question because he's usually like, I don't know. It flows. This was like a complete break in the flow of conversation. And he stumbled over his words and he ended up almost like he made it clear to the guy that whatever your perception is what you will find. He's like, if I believe the world is, awful and people are out to get me, that's what I'm going to find. But in the end, he did say, like, yeah, I suppose my dad not being around was maybe a driving force to where I am. But I think maybe over so many interviews of people bringing that up, because this interview was just like 2 months ago, that he's finally like, okay, I'll give them what they're seeking, is like, I'll say credit to my dad leaving for some of where I'm at, but I don't think, I mean, I don't think that was this traumatic event in his life. Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
saying that it wasn't. I don't even know. To be honest, like, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on that? And have you heard it in
Yeah,
interviews?
I, in general, I really haven't seen it brought up that many times, to be honest. Maybe I don't read enough comments, but I'm just busy admiring his art to read the comments. But um, I do agree he generally does not talk about his dad a whole lot. There has definitely been a curiosity in myself for sure, wondering at what point his dad was no longer in the picture. It has definitely crossed my mind, but I think just seeing his bond and his relationship with his mom, and um, I think that's really, really magical.
Mhm.
And I'm really happy they're able to share that gift. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I wish he would feature his sisters more. Like if I
Yeah.
have any complaints about his family, because his two sisters are allegedly great musicians as well. But I still haven't seen a whole lot from them. So I wish they would
Show up
come out of the
more.
shadows some and kind of work with him a little bit more, whether it's
Yeah.
like officially on an album or just maybe come out for a concert or even one of his Patreon sessions. I'd
Yeah.
love to see more from his sisters. But a very fascinating family, and
Yeah.
he'll share whatever he wants to share.
Right. But I just,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not even about him sharing. And it was the interviewers that brought it up. So it was Colin and Samir's interview. They bring it up. And then this other guy I just listened to. But I think it's just, I was bringing it up at the fact that we so quickly believe that if like you grew up with only one parent or your parents separated, that was this like major catalyst to pain and suffering that changed you. And I hope that people are starting to learn and see that that's not always the story. And when you like insinuate it to people, it's really hard for them to back out of it without sounding arrogant or, like dismissive of other people that have been through it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
No, I totally understand that.
yeah, I just find I mean, he's so fascinating. I don't know if you saw in my video, I emailed him um like a week before he came or a few days before and invited him to the beach. And then he happened to be at the beach, like we were at Madeira Beach, because you're
Yeah.
Florida.
Yeah.
Madeira Beach, and he was at Treasure Island, and we used to go to the drum circle every Sunday at Treasure Island, but it's
And
gotten
I
kind of.
was I was at St. Pete Beach as well, so we were all in the same neighborhood.
Oh my God, he was in between us. You were down
Yeah.
at St.
Yeah.
Pete, I was at Madeira, and then he was in the middle. That is crazy.
And also during our concert, he had mentioned how the one in St. Pete, he had mentioned how he really wanted to see a dolphin, but he hadn't seen a dolphin. Last night, I was walking my dog along the Riverwalk in downtown Tampa, right
Yes.
across from the University of Tampa, the Henry B. Plant Museum. There was a dolphin in the water, and I was like, oh, if only Jacob could be here.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Oh, I always see dolphins out there too, or along the river as well.
It's
Oh, so
rare.
fun.
It's rare. Yeah, it's rare to see them in the river. I think along like the waterfront in St. Pete, they're a lot more common. But to see
Yeah.
them in the river, I don't know how they survive in the river because it's technically a freshwater river, and dolphins are
I
not
think it's
freshwater animals.
brackish. So
Yeah,
it's
just
it's
enough.
brackish up to probably around like Armature Works area
That makes sense.
and
Yeah,
gets
which
less.
is why the bull sharks love it too.
Yeah, and I see people out there paddleboarding. Plus it looks really dirty. I mean, when
Yeah,
they when we
yeah.
had the hurricane and it sucked all the water out, like it is gross under there. We went and looked. Anyway, that's here we go again. We are now travel advisors for Tampa. If you want to know anything about the Tampa St. Pete area.
Paddleboarding is great, but don't do it in the river. Do the
Yeah.
kayak or something instead.
Yeah, yeah, where you're not gonna like accidentally fall in because it's
Yeah,
gross.
yeah.
Or rent those tiny little boats where the people look obscenely too large to be in them.
Yeah, the little e-boats that cost like $100 an hour. They're so
Yeah.
expensive.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Okay, so any final, I mean, I know we could go on forever talking about Jacob and music and just life, but realistically, as we have to sleep and do other things like go to work. Um, any parting thoughts or final things that you just want to share about Jacob and how he's impacted you musically or just in general in life?
I think we touched on pretty much everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really grateful to share this time with you.
Yes.
I
That is
feel like
fun.
coming across people who are this enthusiastic about him,
Fun.
and especially someone like yourself who's still like so new to his music and still branching out and like
It's so
experiencing
fun.
new things and new songs and new albums.
Yeah.
I'm excited to continue hearing your stories,
Yeah.
both about Jacob and other topics as well on your channel. I appreciate you having
Yes.
me on here.
Yes, thank you. So what I'm gonna ask you one last question then. Let's say tomorrow you run into Jacob. What is the one question that you would ask him?
Mm.
If you only had one question you could ask him.
It's really right now because we're still so fresh off of Jesse Volume 4. There are definitely a lot of questions I could ask him about Jesse Volume 4, like some of the songs that weren't included. There's obviously a very small bitter part of me that wants to know about those songs that weren't included. Um, I'm trying to think.
Or a
We talked
statement
about
you would
this.
say to him. Maybe you wouldn't ask a question. Maybe you would just
Yeah,
say
yeah,
something.
definitely tremendous gratitude for expanding my horizons and how I listen to music and the artists I listen to, just introducing me to a whole world of music that I never knew existed. Definitely tremendous gratitude for sure.
Yeah.
I really can't think of a single question. I mean, he's also just so open about so many things.
Mhm.
Even just his songwriting processes. Like if you watch his Logic sessions on his YouTube channel, they're anywhere between an hour and 2 hours long, just breaking down one song on like
Yeah.
his Logic recording software. He's just so transparent about so many things. So I really don't have a ton of questions for him. Just tremendous gratitude for everything he's given us.
That's so beautiful. And I think it is such a testament to how he shows up in the world and how he invites others to show up, which, like you said earlier, is to be completely authentically him and fully transparent. He doesn't hide anything. So I love that answer. I mean, it popped in my head because I had a friend who told me many, many years ago, what would you like, who's your idol or whatever? And I said, and she's like, what would you ask them if you had like 2 minutes with them? And I was like, I don't know. And she's like, then they're really not your idol. And I'm like, what? So anytime like I find someone that I'm highly intrigued with, it's like my mind immediately is like, what question would I ask them? But the same goes for me. The only question I could come up with Jacob is like, can we be friends? Can we hang out? Like those are the two
Yeah, yeah,
questions I would ask.
yeah.
And like that's all
Can
I
we
asked.
like can we share Crocs? Like,
Yeah. Well, I don't have any Crocs anymore. Although when I lived in Minnesota, I had many pairs. Like that is like what people wear there. But I love that. Well, thank
got
you
to get on
so
that Crocs
much.
train.
Yeah, I know. I got to get some new ones. I feel like my feet will get stinky and sweaty in Tampa wearing them.
They definitely, yeah. I'm weird. I always wear my Crocs with socks. I'm a
You're a
Crocs with socks
Croc
kind of guy.
stalker.
Yeah, because of the suede. Yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
that texture on the feet when they're sweaty, it's not very comfortable.
It's like
So
slimy.
yeah, yeah. I always wear my Crocs with socks personally, but
Crocs with socks. I feel like that could be the next Dr. Seuss book.
it definitely could.
Crocs and
Yeah,
socks.
yeah.
All right, Patrick. Well, thank you so, so much for being here tonight. And I look forward to like, I don't know, conversations in the future, going to a concert together. Maybe one day we'll get to like sit down with Jacob. That would be amazing.
Yeah, yeah. That'd
And
be
be
awesome.
friends with him. All right. Well, you have an amazing night. Thank you everyone for tuning in. So much love. And if you have anything you want to share about Jacob Collier, reach out and let's hop on a call and let's chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.